That day, the silence of the house became louder than my pride. I learned that my parents left everything to my younger brother, and to me, only the hope that I would understand. My name's Daniel. I'm 48 years old, grew up in a sleepy little town called LaGrange, Georgia. I was the eldest son of two people who believed in hard work, loyalty, and family, or at least that's what they preached. It's funny how clear things get when you look backward through broken glass. For most of my life, I believed I was doing it right. You know, working hard, showing up, helping my folks when they needed it. Fixing the back porch after storms, wiring money when Dad's truck broke down, driving 3 hours just to mow the lawn when their arthritis got bad. I thought that's what sons did. No scoreboard. No keeping tabs. You just do it because it's family. Turns out, I was keeping tabs. I just didn't realize it until the bottom fell out from under me. It all started, fittingly enough, on a Sunday afternoon, one of those heavy, humid Georgia Sundays where the sky looks like it's about to cry but never quite does. I was at their house, patching up a leak in the bathroom, sweating through my old Braves cap, when I found a folder sitting out on the kitchen counter. Thick, official looking. I probably would have left it alone if it hadn't been labeled in bold letters, Last Will and Testament. I wish I could tell you I didn't peek. I wish I could tell you I respected their privacy and left it be. But something pulled at me, something cold and sharp, like a fishhook under my ribs. So I opened it. And that's when I saw it. Everything was left to my younger brother, Matt. The house, the land, Dad's retirement accounts, even the family heirlooms Mom had always sworn would stay in the family. Not one word about me. Not a scrap. Just a single line that said, "We trust Daniel will understand." Understand what exactly? That I was good enough to fix the toilet but not good enough to inherit the keys to the kingdom? That loyalty was a one-way street in this family? I stood there staring at that stupid piece of paper, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and started ripping out cables. I don't even know how long I stood there. The next thing I knew, the screen door creaked, and there was my mom, drying her hands on a dish towel like nothing had changed. And maybe for her, nothing had. She smiled when she saw me, that same tired, polite smile she wore when the pastor asked after her health or when the neighbor's dog dug up her flower beds. "Hey, honey," she said, like we weren't standing at the epicenter of an earthquake only I seemed to feel. I held up the will, my hand trembling a little, though I prayed she couldn't see it. "You want to explain this?" Her smile faltered. She looked at the folder, then back at me. She opened her mouth, closed it, then sighed like I was the one making things difficult. "Daniel, we just figured. You've got your own life. You're doing fine." That was the moment the floor gave out underneath me. Doing fine. Like it was some kind of crime. Like having a job and a roof over my head meant I didn't deserve a piece of the family I'd bled for. "You figured," I said slowly, tasting the words like they were spoiled. "You figured I wouldn't mind being cut out like a tumor." Mom flinched at that, but she didn't deny it. She just folded the towel in her hands tighter and said, almost whispering, "Matt needs it more." Matt. My brother. The same brother who had moved 3 states away at 19 and barely called except when he needed bail money or a loan. The same brother who showed up at Christmas smelling like bourbon and bad decisions. That Matt. I put the folder down carefully like it might explode if I dropped it, and I walked out the back door without another word. I heard Mom calling after me, but I didn't stop. Not even when I got in my truck and slammed the doors so hard the rearview mirror rattled. I drove for an hour with no real direction, just letting the miles roll under me, trying to outrun the rage clawing at my throat. I ended up in a diner off Highway 29, the kind with sticky floors and waitresses who call you hon, whether you want them to or not. I sat there in a cracked vinyl booth, nursing a coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, and stared out the window while the weight of it all finally sank in. It wasn't just the will. It wasn't just the money or the house. It was the realization that somewhere along the way, I had become an afterthought in my own family story. And worst of all, deep down, I already knew it. I had just been too proud to admit it until now. I didn't sleep that night. I drove back to my house, a little 2-bedroom place on the edge of town, sat on the porch swing I built with my own 2 hands, and stared up at the stars until the sky faded into that ugly, bruised purple that means morning is coming whether you're ready or not. Every memory started playing like a bad home movie in my head. All the little things I had swallowed over the years, things I told myself didn't matter, suddenly they all did. The way Matt always got a free pass. Like the time he wrecked Dad's truck after drinking with his buddies and they brushed it off as boys will be boys. But when I so much as forgot to mow the lawn once, I got the silent treatment for a week. Or how when Matt dropped out of college, they threw him a life happens party. But when I got promoted at work, they didn't even call. I used to laugh it off. I used to tell myself it was just family being family. That old Southern way of sweeping things under the rug and pretending nothing was broken. But you live with enough ghosts under your roof, you start tripping over them eventually. And the truth was, I had spent my whole life being the solid one, the dependable one, the one they leaned on when everything else fell apart. And they loved that about me right up until it came time to actually value me. I thought about my dad too. How he always acted like he was doing me a favor by teaching me how to fix a transmission or tile a floor, when really it was just unpaid labor for every house project he didn't want to do himself. I thought about how he'd ruffle Matt's hair and say, "He's the dreamer, you're the worker." Like it was some kind of blessing. It wasn't. It was a sentence. The dreamers get forgiven. The workers get forgotten. And here I was, almost 50 years old, staring down the barrel of a truth I should have seen coming decades ago. They didn't choose Matt because he needed it more. They chose Matt because I made myself unnecessary. Because they knew, somehow, that no matter what they did, I'd survive it. Because they counted on me being strong enough to live without them. And the sickest part? They were right. The next morning, the world looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The tools on my garage wall, the coffee pot sputtering in the kitchen, the old boots by the door, they were all pieces of a life I had built around an idea that didn't exist anymore. Family first. Family always. I packed a duffel bag. No idea why, really. Muscle memory maybe. Something inside me knew I couldn't just sit still. I had to move, had to put distance between myself and the version of me that thought loyalty meant something. I texted my boss, told him I needed a few days off. No explanation. He didn't ask for one. I think he could hear it in the way I kept my sentences short. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I drove back to my parents' house. Not to scream. Not to cry. Not even to make them explain it. I wasn't that naive anymore. I went back to take inventory. Of what? I didn't know yet. Maybe of what was left. Maybe just to see it all one last time without the lies layered on top. When I pulled into the gravel driveway, the first thing I noticed was how small the house looked. Smaller than I remembered. Like it had been shrinking for years and I just hadn't bothered to notice. Dad was out front, sitting on the porch swing I had fixed 2 summers ago when the chain snapped. His face was lined deeper than I remembered, and for a second, he looked almost fragile. Part of me wanted to feel something for him. Pity. Nostalgia. Something. I didn't. He looked up when he heard my truck door slam. His mouth opened a little like he was going to call out, but then he saw the look on my face, and whatever words he had ready died in his throat. I walked past him without a word. Straight into the house. The screen door banging behind me harder than I meant it to. The air inside smelled like dust and lemon cleaner, and the kitchen table still had that ugly crocheted runner Mom refused to throw away. It was all the same, and yet everything had shifted. I went up the stairs 2 at a time, my boots heavy on the steps, like I was stomping out the past 1 tread at a time. When I reached the attic door, I pulled down the ladder and climbed up, my hands rough on the worn wood. The attic was packed, like always. Boxes stacked 3 deep, old Christmas decorations sagging in torn Walmart bags, dusty trophies from Little League and high school speech contests. I dug through it all, through the weight of 30 years of being the good son, until I found what I was looking for. It was shoved way in the back, behind a busted rocking chair and a stack of old moving boxes labeled Matt's stuff. Funny, isn't it? Even the junk that wasn't worth bringing to his new life still got a place of honor here, while I was expected to disappear clean and quiet. The box was an old shipping crate, half collapsed from time and mice. My name was scrawled across the top in my mother's handwriting, Daniel's Things. I pried it open, my hands filthy from dust and God knows what else. Inside were the scraps of a life they'd never really paid attention to. A cracked photo frame from my high school graduation, still wrapped in the tissue paper they never bothered to open. A couple of dusty plaques from science fairs they never attended. A faded letter from a college I never went to because Dad thought it was too far away, too fancy for folks like us. At the very bottom, under a crumpled t-shirt and a stack of old comic books, was a card. No envelope, no ceremony, just a plain, creased Hallmark card. Inside was a short note, scrawled in Dad's handwriting. "We're proud of you, son. We just don't know how to say it." That was it. No date, no signature, no context. Just a flimsy little apology, buried under 20 pounds of junk, left to rot in a forgotten attic. I sat back on my heels, the beam of sunlight cutting through the cracked attic window, making a hot stripe across my arms, and for the first time in a long time, I felt absolutely, devastatingly empty. They had loved me, I guess, in their way. But love that hides in attics and hopes you never find it isn't really love at all. It's guilt. It's cowardice. And it changes absolutely nothing. I sat there for a long time, turning that card over in my hand, until finally, I stuffed it back into the box, shoved the box into the darkest corner I could find, and left it there, where it belonged, out of sight, out of mind, just like they wanted. I didn't storm down the attic ladder, didn't slam doors or break anything, like some angry teenager. No, I moved slow, steady, the way a man moves when he knows something important is over and done. When I stepped back out onto the porch, Dad was still sitting there, watching me like he wasn't sure if he should speak or stay silent. In the end, his old instincts won out. He stayed silent. I sat down across from him. Not close. Not the way we used to when he taught me how to whittle with a pocket knife on these very steps. Far enough that he had to squint to see me clearly. For a long time, neither of us said a word. The air buzzed with the weight of everything we weren't saying. Finally, I broke the silence. I saw the will, I said, my voice as dry and cracked as the porch wood under my boots. He flinched, just a little, and ran a hand over his jaw. That same old tell he had when he was lying or hiding something. We didn't mean for you to find out like that, he muttered. I almost laughed. Like that. As if the betrayal would have hurt less if it came with a bow on top. I know, I said, and I meant it. They didn't plan for me to find out. They planned for me to stay clueless, stay the dependable mule, right up until the end. They counted on my loyalty outlasting their gratitude. Dad looked down at his hands. Big hands, calloused from a life of real work. Work he passed on to me like a curse without realizing it. Matt's different, he said weakly. Yeah, I said. He is. We both knew what he meant. Matt was the broken one, the one who always needed saving. And in some twisted way, that made him more important than the one who never asked for anything. You're strong, Daniel, he said quietly. Always have been. I shook my head, looking out across the dead lawn, the sagging fence I'd patched up last spring. You don't reward strength by punishing it, I said. You don't break the people who carry you. He didn't answer. Maybe because he didn't have one. Or maybe because deep down, he knew he already had. We sat there a while longer, two stubborn old mules staring off into the late afternoon sun, until finally I stood up. He looked up at me, maybe waiting for me to say something kind. Some parting grace note to make him feel better. But I didn't. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do is leave someone to their silence. So I walked to my truck without another word, fired up the engine, and pulled out of that driveway for the last time. And I didn't look back. Not once. The funny thing they never tell you about walking away, it doesn't feel good right away. It's not a clean break, like in the movies. It's not righteous anger and triumphant music playing in your head. It's quiet. It's this awful gnawing feeling like you just amputated part of yourself, and now you're bleeding from the inside out. I drove with no destination again. Just the old truck and the long Georgia road stretching out in front of me like a dare. For a while, I thought maybe I should call someone. An old friend. My cousin Danny from down in Noonan, who always said he had a couch for me if I ever needed it. But what would I say? Hey man, just found out my whole life was a lie. You got any beer? Yeah. No. I pulled into an old gas station on the outskirts of town. One of those places that hasn't updated its pumps since the Reagan administration. I grabbed a Coke and a sandwich that probably should have been thrown out 2 days ago, sat at a cracked plastic table outside, and stared at the people coming and going. Young couple filling up a beat-up Civic, arguing playfully about directions. A farmer loading bags of feed into a battered Ford. An old man buying lottery tickets inside, scratching them off with a coin right there at the counter like he couldn't wait another minute to find out if hope was worth it today. Life, still happening, indifferent to my little personal apocalypse. And me? I felt like a ghost hovering just outside it all. I pulled out my phone once, stared at Mom's number, thumbed over the screen, wondering if maybe there was something left to salvage. Then I thought about the attic. About that stupid card buried under a pile of junk they couldn't even bother to dust off. And I put the phone back in my pocket. Not today. Maybe not ever. Because forgiveness, real forgiveness, that kind of thing costs more than people think. It's not just a word you say. It's a piece of yourself you give away, knowing you'll never get it back. And some things just aren't worth the price anymore. I stayed at that gas station longer than anyone with any self-respect probably should. Long enough to watch 2 shifts of workers clock in and out. Long enough to see the sun started slow, heavy drop behind the pine trees. My Coke went warm in my hand. The sandwich I'd bought curled up at the edges like it was trying to shrink away from me, as if even it knew something was wrong. The clerk inside kept glancing out at me through the fingerprint-smeared window, probably wondering if he needed to call the sheriff or just let me rot out there. But I wasn't causing trouble. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't crazy. I was just sitting and thinking about all the years I'd spent dragging the dead weight of my family behind me like it was some sacred duty. Every busted pipe I fixed. Every emergency loan I handed over with a tight smile and no questions. Every Sunday afternoon wasted trying to patch up holes in relationships that were never mine to fix in the first place. Turns out, you can spend your whole damn life thinking you're holding something together, only to realize you were the only one pulling on the rope, while everybody else let go years ago. I thought about the attic again. That stupid card. The one hidden under a pile of broken trophies and forgotten comic books. We're proud of you, son. We just don't know how to say it. What a joke. You don't hide pride like a dirty secret. You don't bury love under dust and insulation and hope it magically counts when you're dead and gone. You show it. You say it while people are still alive to hear it. But they didn't. They never had. And somewhere along the line, I had stopped expecting them to. Maybe that's the cruelest kind of heartbreak. Not the sudden betrayal, not the knife between the ribs, but the slow, grinding erosion of hope. The realization that the people you bled for will never even notice you're bleeding. I pulled out my phone at one point, thumbed over my mom's number, hovered there, staring at her name, feeling the familiar pull of guilt tightening around my throat. Maybe if I called, she'd cry. Maybe she'd apologize. Maybe she'd say all the right things, and I could shove the whole ugly truth back into the attic of my mind where it had been collecting dust for decades. But I didn't call, because deep down, I knew it would just be more of the same. Apologies that sound like excuses. Regrets that come too late to matter. You can't build a future on top of a rotten foundation. You just sink slower and slower until one day you realize you're living in a house that's already halfway collapsed. I tossed the sandwich into the trash, crumpled up the Coke can, and slid back into the driver's seat of my old truck. The engine coughed to life, rattling like an old man shaking off a bad dream. And for the first time in my life, I made a choice for myself. Not for them. Not out of guilt. Not because I was trying to earn a love that was never going to be given freely. I wasn't going back. Not tomorrow when the loneliness set in. Not next week when the holidays rolled around and the empty chair at the table started whispering my name. Not ever. Maybe one day, years from now, they'd realize what they lost. Maybe they'd sit on that same broken-down porch, watching the world crumble around them, and wonder why the only son who ever truly showed up was the one who finally stopped knocking. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd keep telling themselves that Matt was the dreamer and I was the worker. And that somehow, that justified everything. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. I had my answer. I had my freedom. I shifted the truck into drive, the gravel crunching under the tires like brittle bones, and pulled back onto the highway. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I didn't feel like I was running away from something. I felt like I was finally running towards something. Something better. Something mine. The sun was almost down when I hit the highway, just a big angry smear of orange across the sky. For the first few miles, I didn't turn the radio on. Didn't make a call. Didn't think about where I was going. I just drove. Past fields gone brittle from the heat. Past shuttered gas stations and broken-down barns leaning like old men who'd fought too many winters. Past the signs pointing back toward Lagrange. Toward the life I was leaving behind like an old, shed skin. It should have hurt more than it did. Maybe a few years ago it would have. But now it just felt necessary. Like breathing after holding your head underwater too long. I ended up about 2 hours south, just outside a town called Eufaula. One of those places nobody ever writes songs about, but maybe they should. Brick buildings, wide lazy river, sleepy streets where everybody still waves at you like they mean it. I found a cheap motel on the edge of town. Neon sign buzzing against the purple sky, parking lot half empty. Paid cash for a room without even thinking about it. Old habit, maybe. Part of me still half expecting somebody to come looking, to yank me back to a life that no longer belonged to me. The room was nothing special. Thin sheets, a rickety desk, a window that stuck halfway up when I tried to open it. But it was mine for the night. Mine. I dropped the duffel bag onto the bed and sat down beside it, listening to the hum of the old air conditioner fighting a losing battle against the southern heat. And for the first time in years, I let myself wonder, really wonder, what it would feel like to build something without strings attached, without guilt hanging off every nail, without owing anybody anything. The thought scared me. God, it scared the hell out of me. Because when you've spent your whole life being the dependable one, the responsible one, the strong one, you start to believe that's all you are. You start to believe that without somebody else's weight on your back, you'll just float away, vanish. But sitting there on that lumpy mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling, I realized something. Maybe floating isn't the worst thing in the world. Maybe it's just the first step toward flying. The next morning, I woke to pale light filtering through the stained curtains. No alarms. No texts from my parents. No guilt gnawing a hole in my stomach before my feet even hit the floor. Just me, the sound of trucks rumbling down the highway, and a day stretched out wide and blank in front of me. I made a cup of burnt motel coffee and stood by the window, sipping it slow, letting the bitter heat anchor me. Outside, the world moved on without me. Kids pedaled bikes down cracked sidewalks. Old men gathered outside the diner, trading stories nobody was really in a hurry to finish telling. I watched them for a long time, realizing that somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that life didn't owe you big moments. No fireworks, no dramatic speeches. Sometimes the best you get is a quiet morning in a no-name town and the chance to start over. And sometimes that's enough. I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a list of goals or a grand revenge plot against the people who'd hurt me. What I had was a truck, a little cash, a sturdy pair of boots, and the sudden, breathtaking realization that the rest of my life didn't have to be about proving anything to anyone. It could just be mine. Messy, small, honest. I could build a little woodworking business if I wanted. Or I could bartend. Or hell, I could just work day jobs until I figured it out. Nobody's expectations weighing down my every move. Nobody keeping score but me. I thought about Matt and the house and the money and the land. Thought about how, someday, all of it would probably crush him. The responsibility he wasn't built to carry, the endless demands he wouldn't know how to meet. It wasn't my burden anymore. I left it behind on a dusty driveway outside a house that no longer felt like home. By noon, I had the truck packed again, just the duffel bag, a gas station sandwich, and a map I didn't really plan on using. I didn't know where the road would take me. Didn't care. All I knew was that for the first time in almost 50 years, I wasn't walking on a leash made of old promises and silent expectations. I was free. I pulled onto the highway, rolled the windows down, and let the hot wind whip through the cab. Somewhere behind me, the ghosts of everything I'd carried finally started to fade. And somewhere up ahead, a life that was mine, really mine, was waiting. I didn't rush toward it. I just drove. Steady. Unshakable. Finally, my own man.